Hi guys, welcome back to Strength Stories with Jory. Today we have on Helena-based personal trainer, Polly Campbell. Polly, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. I think we have been planning this for some time, and we're glad we could connect.
So I know you were on the previous podcast, or on the previous Granite podcast, but for this new one, could you just give a quick intro to your background?
Yeah, I have my master's degree in nutritional sciences, and I've been a coach for about 2 decades. And I own and run a semi-private training facility in Montana City called The Bar. And I'll spare you all the in between the line details. Here we are.
So today we're going to talk about strength training for endurance athletes. And again, I think yours is just a really good example for this, which is why I wanted to bring you on, because obviously you've got, you said, history in bodybuilding, stupid strong. And then maybe, is it 3 years ago you kind of started getting a little more into endurance? Is it that long already?
No, it's about 1.5 years, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and everything past 2020, I'm just like, I can't remember any data.
Yeah, man, it's a blur. It's like here we are, 2025.
Yeah. So yours is just a good example of like how, again, we've, strength changes to a degree, but for the most part, how you've continued to stay really strong, you've kept on muscle mass, and you're doing just stupid distances on these races. And do you want to give the audience what your next potential one that you're training for is?
Yeah. So before I give you that, it's important to know that I did compete as a natural drug-free bodybuilder for the last, I think it was like 17 years or so. And I competed professionally as well. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of sets the stage a little bit more on my end, more information that might be helpful. And thanks for bringing it up, Ryan. And so about 1.5 years, I got, kind of important for the topic, I suppose. About 1.5 years ago, I got into running. One of my clients, asked me if I want to do this race. Coincidentally, this Sunday is a half marathon in Missoula. It is a road one. I've been mostly trail running. And the kicker here is this was supposed to be my first half marathon last year that I was training for with my client. And I got food poisoning that morning. And I ate at a pizza place. I'm not going to name names, but it was super miserable. And so there you have it.
Perfect.
Redemption.
Yeah, I still remember, like I said, you messaging me on that, where all of a sudden we're just going to change your training, which again, I think what's kind of surprising for the audience is really like, there really isn't that much that we change. It's funny. I was actually just talking with a client today because she was asking me about like postpartum training and how we change things for that. And I was explaining to people, like, I think a lot of times people think like, it's like we just take down the board and you just change every single thing in people's programming. And honestly, for most of our programs, like 90% of the stuff is the same. Like I kind of use the example of like a pasta sauce. Like it's still a pasta sauce, but we just might put in a different amount of basil or a different amount of oregano. Like it's still, at the end of the day, it's still a sauce. Like we're still training to get stronger, but yeah, like we're obviously going to reduce volume. There's slight areas we might focus on a little bit more than if you were not training for an endurance sport. But ultimately, like the basic sauce is still the same thing. It's just a little bit tailored. It's like that 10% that really makes the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're still pressing, you're still pushing, you're still pulling, you're hinging, you're doing all those movements. And what was interesting about it is it was kind of hard for me to let go of that. Some of the ingredients in that sauce that you're talking about, specifically like with barbell back squats. I haven't done those for years. I have really super great equipment to accommodate for that, like pendulum squats, etc. So it was an easy switch. And then like conventional deadlifts, that kind of is like my bread and butter movement. I was really good at it. And we just actually started incorporating them back in per my request. But the difference here is I'm not going to be pulling, 400, 500, 600 pounds anymore. It's like, it's like maybe 405. And what I've really enjoyed about the transition with some of those ingredients has been, I'm incorporating more mobility into my workouts. So they're not separate workouts. They're incorporated as part of the exercises, which is important for runners because, anybody really, but runners specifically, because we're only training in like one plane of motion and we want to focus on hip internal and external health. So it's like making sure in the transverse and the sagittal and the frontal, all planes of motion are going to be beneficial. And a lot of single joint, not single joint, excuse me, but like single arm or single leg movements. Which has been amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of runners miss that. It's like, yeah, you still need some lateral stuff, and especially for you, like given that they said a lot of your stuff is trail based, a lot of trail stuff is you're cutting to the side and you're constantly having to go left, right. So we still need some of that lateral stuff and like adductors and like, so both sides of our hips really need to be addressed. I think a lot of people, again, they think like, oh, I'm going to do lunges and that'll cover me. And it's like, I mean, lunges are awesome and it's still going to be one of our, like I said, one of our bread and butters, but we want to go all directions.
Yeah. And think about like doing, like, this is a great example, I think anyway, and you jog my memory, Ryan, but think about doing like a bunch of yard work that you haven't done in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like your body reacts in a different way. Obviously yard work could be, several hours. So the dose is relatively high, but that can apply to training in different planes of motion. We get comfortable doing the same thing, which I think is important. To get comfortable in a training program and evaluating as you go and making adjustments to either exercises, et cetera, to help complement, like, for example, I had some hamstring issues and, then I had some distal hamstring tendonitis going on. And so I don't care what sport you're in, or even if you're general population, you can have these little nooks and crannies that you forgot about that kind of went dormant, kind of come to life again. And it's not that you're doing anything incorrectly. It just might be that it's bringing out a weakness that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I think I had a few of those. And that's primarily why I switched to, after that hamstring issue we were dealing with for quite a while last year, Ryan, I switched to trail running, which was a significant improvement in the training program. And what I believed years ago when I was training people for endurance, I was like anti-cardio unless I was playing sports, but typical bro bodybuilder mentality, I suppose. I think I went so far off on a tangent, I forgot what I was going to say for a second there.
I'm just kind of avoiding cardio. And
yeah, but like the rep range, right? Because our muscles don't know rep ranges, but I think it's safe to assume the higher reps you're going with, the lighter the weight. And with endurance, you're already getting that high repetition on the trail with your running. So to do like 100 walking lunges it's just kind of, you're not really improving anything.
Yeah.
If you want to get stronger, we have to give the tissue a reason to get stronger. And so if you're listening to this, take a look at how you're training. And if you're typically training, I'll say that 15 plus rep range, maybe 12 for some exercises. And you just feel like you're constantly burnt out, like, because that's still a ton of volume after you've done some of your endurance training for the week. And I mountain bike as well quite a bit. I have 3 bikes. And so throwing that into the mix, I know many athletes that are endurance athletes, they are multifaceted in that capacity. But change your rep range up, change your load up. If you change the load you're using, you will be forced to change your rep range. That's the easiest way to think about it.
Exactly. It's like you were saying too, on how one of the reasons that we incorporate a lot of that load or the like lateral work and stuff is, says it's bases we're already not crossing off. So if you're already crossing that base off by doing, like you said, you're running 20, 30, 40 miles a week. Like I doubt your weak point comes from doing, 10 to 20s on lunges. Like it's probably gonna be more like, hey, let's do a safety bar. Let's load these things up for like 5 to 8. Like that's going to make a real difference. And that's where we're going to see that carry over to hills and stuff like that. Yeah. Ultimately it's like finding what we're not already addressing and filling that bucket. Like I said, you're already putting plenty into that. Like, I guess it was, coming back to the volume thing. Most people don't get that beat up by heavy weights in terms of like recovery costs for the most part. I mean, as long as, we're not maxing every week or whatever, but doing like say heavy 3s and 5s on deadlifts, like, yes, has a fatigue cost, but it's not the same as like, say, doing like 8s and 10s. Like that volume is where we just see people, like I said, it's kind of that, I hate to say like adrenal fatigue, like people reference that, but like that kind of that feeling that people attribute with that, where they just feel wiped out. It's like that typically comes from a lot of volume. So if we're already getting a ton of volume on the road, like the last thing we need to be doing is like 5 sets of 15 on like 4 different leg exercises.
Right. And you're kind of skirting underneath that radar when you, like, for example, our deadlifts, it's like 1 to 2 sets. That's like, so full disclosure, I went from working out and I made a post about this like a month ago. I was comparing my current physique, which is like 20 pounds lighter than it was last year. And I compared, it's a side-by-side of 2 front double biceps. And one was like 8 weeks out from world championships in 2020. And I almost look very, like, you can tell I haven't lost any muscle size. And so for literally the past 2 years, I went from like 4 to 5 days a week. The last 2 years I've been doing like 2 to 3 consistently, which is also super refreshing because then I can spend time doing things outside and they really balance each other. And I still train intense, but it's not, I don't want to say it's not hypertrophy because there are some hypertrophy variables in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, one of the things that I had to play with is the dosage or the mileage rather, the dose of either biking and running. And I've been fortunate enough to because I've coached thousands of people, and Ryan, you've coached thousands of people as well. I'm able to kind of pay attention to the data points that I'm going through. And what I'm getting at is I am really good at climbing. Whether I'm running, I typically won't run, I'll power climb. And there was a race I did a month ago, and there was this one head wall, and I think I power climbed past a dozen people, which was awesome. And I attribute that to my posterior strength, which we continuously hammer. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge area of neglect for females and males. They have, I'll call them National Geographic asses. They're just flat pancake asses, for real. And their hamstrings. And I said that because I just wanted to see you laugh on this podcast, Ryan, which is great. And because Ryan doesn't laugh, he's emotionless. It's kind of funny. But building that posterior strength, and it's, people that have low back issues, core is important. I'm not suggesting it isn't, but it's generally a lack of strength in their hamstrings and glutes, primarily glutes, both glute med, glute minimus, internal, external rotation. It's just been really cool to kind of be exposed to a different world, but apply these things to myself because I do have a high percentage of people that I train regularly that are involved in that community.
It's funny too, because I'm trying to remember, I know we've used this for you on push-ups, but it's funny when you reference back to going up the hills and stuff. One of the things that I found most beneficial with my clients for that hill endurance is doing the high intensity continuous training. And a lot of times we'll do that with either safety bar lunges or walking lunges or something like that. And it's funny because it seems like it would be similar to we're doing, say 10 to 20 or whatever, and just this miserable hard set. What I find people actually get more carryover from is we do, let's say it's body weight walking lunges. They do 1 rep every 3 to 5 seconds. So it's actually dramatically easier than doing those really hard sets, but we stretch it out for 5 minutes, 8 minutes. Joel Jamieson has people going as high as 20 minutes outside of one sadistic mountain climber I trained. I've never really pushed any people that far because people just don't like it mentally. What's funny is that becomes a form of almost aerobic training, even though it's not true aerobic. That's weirdly enough, I find carries over more than heavy sets of 10 to 15. I feel we do our best work either doing 5 to 8, getting really heavy, or we go super light and just go for extended periods. It's almost too easy, but it just seems to carry over a lot more. And probably it's more to do with the fact that it just doesn't generate nearly the amount of fatigue that a heavy set of 10 to 15 does.
Yeah. And they're it's basically a cluster set. We've done that before, 1 rep every 30 to 60 seconds. And I start at 30 seconds. And as I move through the prescribed rep count, I might gear more toward the minute by the, the second half of the set or the second half of the cluster series. So
it's I was just telling someone today on this, most people make their hard training too easy and their easy training too hard. And that's kind of a dichotomy there. When we're going hard and heavy, I want you pushing it close to the edge, but I said, a lot of our training, a lot of that volume is going to be built up with really easy work. Again, going back to endurance, you look at Olympic marathoners, 80% of their work is in that very easy range. They're not pushing themselves at that 8 to 9 intensity that often, but when they do, they go for it.
Right.
So first, I just want to go over, and it's funny, we've already addressed some of these to small degrees, but looking at areas that we want to address and really train hard for a runner. Again, we already kind of went over going over those laterals, so getting the sides of the hips and groin muscles. But one of the ones that we've played a lot with your training is just foot strength. Is if you have a weak foot, that's going to tend to collapse in. Then we're leading to knee stuff. It's leading to hip stuff, and that's where almost never when we see those knee issues is it actually a true knee issue unless you got actually hit with a baseball bat. It's usually coming from somewhere up or down this chain. And I think we've noticed a big difference for you just doing calf raise work, floating heel split squats, stuff like that. That's still training your legs, but it's making your foot do a lot of work at the same time.
Yeah, the floating split squats are absolutely terrible in a good way, of course, right? Yeah, I think, and that's one thing we know as coaches working with clients, just in the general population, the chain of command is important, and everything starts from the ground up. So typically, if somebody has the knee or hip issue, you look at the foot to see what's happening. Sometimes it's an orthotic, but that it also helps with my dexterity on the trail. because I'm spending a lot of time on the balls of my feet
Yep.
when I'm running, especially over like obstacles like rocks and logs and streams and all the stuff that could possibly be in the way on a trail.
Mm.
And so that's been super helpful. Also, posterior strength, rear delts, upper traps, mid traps,
postural stuff.
Yeah, pretty much the entire backside. Like it's all important, but if you think about the amount of time you're spent through like a half marathon might be 2 hours, a 12K, might be a little less, whatever, what have you. You want to make sure you have good posture. And I feel like I'm 208 pounds. So I'm never like, my objective is not to be a world record runner here. It's to improve my cardiovascular system and push myself in a different way than I have for the last 17 years while still implementing protocols. And it's, so I think.
Well, you don't want to be that like sad, droopy runner. Like you see those people at the end and they're just like hunched over because everything is just shot by that point.
Yeah. It's like, I think I have too much muscle mass that could be a detriment. Right. But like, I'm not going to purposefully lose lean body mass to participate in endurance. I'm going to purposefully dose myself with resistance training and cardiovascular to make myself improve myself as much as possible at the frame I have.
Another one that's similar, because this can tie in with some of the lateral work, but it's just getting in more rotational work. I mean, obviously running is in itself a rotational sport. You are constantly turning. And that's where stuff like, again, planks help, side planks are nice, but we want to get something, whether it's like chops or we're doing some sort of like landmine rotation or something like that, that's going to be a little more, again, I hate to say running specific because we're never going to actually, running is actual running specific, but stuff that's training similar patterns for that.
Yeah. And if you think about like your QLs, how much rotation, like how much tension those are under and what your arms are doing, and your psoas, like transverse abdominis, like all of these hip flexors, right? Like all these things we're not walking like robots. And I think I see it a lot in females. They have psoas issues or what have you from ones that have been participating for a long time. And that's debilitating like that. Yeah. It's terrible. So is any injury is I wouldn't like say I'd rather have one over the other because plantar fasciitis also sucks, which I've had.
See, I just wanted you to address the importance of that on camera, because then maybe we make sure that that's an exercise you don't skip in your programming. When
definitely not. Yeah, like.
Well, I just noticed, like it's like when you do skip an exercise, like weird, he always skips the rotational ab stuff at the end of the workout. Like,
so to be clear, like I do go back and do them most of the time.
I know,
but I do. Yeah.
There was a period where I was literally putting in your notes, like, don't skip your damn QL stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do see that.
I know.
I always like when you post videos of Paul Carter, because I know it's like him doing exercise. I'm like, that guy's he's a human child, a man child on social media.
The last one I wanted to put in there for muscles that we address, and this ties in with the rotation work, but is lats. Like people don't think enough about the lats as a running muscle, but that is part of what's creating that trunk rotation. I always try to reference with my clients who are runners. There was a place called it's the Prezi Speed School. It's over in like New Jersey. And one of the things they found was like the guys who could do the most chin-ups and pull-ups also tended to be the fastest sprinters. And obviously we're looking at endurance, not sprinting, but it still comes back to the same thing where those lats do have a big factor. So if we're getting stronger on chin-ups, or at the very least like lat pull downs and other similar exercises, that does carry over to your running as well. So I think a lot of runners get the idea like they only need to do like abs and legs. And it's like that upper body factors in, like it's all part of the picture.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like nutrition, right? Like it all, like the information is still the same. It's just slightly different. Like it applies to you where you're at in your training protocol and in your, life phase of your lifestyle. But like the overarching message is like, you need to be strong in all areas of your body. Like you have to. I've seen some really incredible distance runners, like trail runners, road runners, and I'd be surprised if they could do a pull-up, And I'm just thinking to myself, if they actually strength trained, they would be like exponent. Like strength training just doesn't make you a little bit better; it makes you exponentially better.
Well, and as that was one thing areas we're going to go to, but one thing I didn't even consider when I was writing out the questions is, especially for a trail runner, you want that upper body strength because at some point as a trail runner, you're going to have a slip and fall. like at some point you're going to trip on something. And like, you want to have that resilience when you do land, so you're not getting injured. Like, there is something to that too. It's, again, it wouldn't be the main reason we'd be doing upper body training, but it doesn't hurt either.
Yeah. And if you have a little bit more muscle, I mean, you have a little bit more support,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Exactly.
I've fallen plenty of times, and falling is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But I do think the rotational work played a huge role, because I was able to, you know, not wreck my back, and I was able to, you know, like to
fall
think
gracefully.
that I was. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. It happens. If you think you're going to run and you're not going to fall, you're sadly mistaken.
And again, going back to one of the ones we talked about earlier, as far as like reasons why we would strength train for endurance stuff, they said one of the main ones we talked about is just those hills. Like, people who are stronger don't get beat up by hills nearly to the degree that, like, there are like people who are really fast over a flat line, and then you watch them go up a hill and they just get absolutely tanked because they have no strength.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really it matters a ton.
And in Helena, we have a really good trail system, and there's really not a beginner trail. Like, most trailheads, you're starting off by climbing. You know, it might be 100 or 200 feet. It might be 1,000 feet. You know, it's like, there's just one route we do, and it's in the first 2.5 miles, there's like 1,400 vertical.
So the last two I was going to go over as far as reasons we want to strength train for endurance, and as my AirPod tries to fall out of my ear. But one of the ones is speed. People don't think about that enough, in that a stronger runner also means that you're able to put more power into the ground with every single step you take, which then carries over to you being faster. I know I didn't really make that a question. I kind of just made it a statement and then paused, but
no, it's all, well, I know what you're talking about. And, you know, it's been kind of enjoyable. Like, we'll do some single leg plyos, double leg plyos. We'll use the sled a ton. The sled is another thing that you'll love to hate. You know, going through power phases, speed phases, those types of, you know, exercises, but it has made a big difference.
It's funny how often I get runners where we cut back mileage and we just start strength training. And well, a lot of times we'll find that they actually just get faster initially just from adding in that strength work. Like, they're actually doing less mileage and getting faster, which, again, obviously a lot of people run strictly for enjoyment, but it's like, if you want to be faster, cutting back a little bit of that running and just replacing with even just bare bone strength training, almost always, I've yet to see it make anyone worse. It almost always see at least a bit of an improvement. While we're adding in that injury resiliency, we're also adding in, like I said, just making hills less miserable.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, like, I collected some information. You know, I use a Garmin Phoenix 9 or 8 or whatever it is at this point, but there's a reservoir in Helena, and it's a 5-mile loop. And we used that for training last year quite a bit. And I can't remember the exact time difference, but we did it again this year. And I wanted to compare and contrast to when I was like first few months into running, like maybe 4 or 5 to, you know, over a year. And I want to say, like, the overall time improved by like 3 to 5 minutes,
which is big over that distance.
Yeah, it was pretty significant. I'll have to go back. I think it was between 3 and 5 minutes. So that was like, when you see that information, you're like, you know, you're doing something correctly. And for me, you know, you talked about like people who run a lot, and then you talk about them cutting down their mileage and adding strength training. For me, it was the opposite. I was cutting back on my strength training and increasing my mileage to have a similar impact, right? So you have to find the right dose of each to which you can recover. And, you know, I'd like, you know, because if you're constantly getting injured, that's telling you something is not going well. There's a hole in the, you know, in the tire, and you're just putting air in to go out the other side, essentially.
Which is funny, because it comes back to what we were saying in the beginning here. All the training is so similar. It's still always just figuring out what the individual inputs need to be to get the output we're looking at. And I said, some runners need more mileage, some need less, some need more strength training, some need less. It's all about kind of just playing with things and tinkering and figuring out, okay, what are we responding to? What are we not responding well to? And then just adding some tracking based on results. Like, again, this is why I like looking at training as a weekly thing. It's like, we look at what's working, we look at what's not, and we adjust based on that. Like, I'm not writing any plan in pen. I'm writing it in pencil, because we're going to make adjustments at some point, whether it's up or down or cutting something.
Yeah. I mean, there was an exercise a week or two ago that I messaged, you know, I put a note in there. I'm like, this is not driving with my elbow. So we changed it. It was pretty simple.
Exactly. It's like, we didn't change the whole program. It's like, we found the weak point, take it out, move on.
Yeah. And it wasn't like I didn't want to do, like, because there's some, I think sometimes we can caught in this paradox of like, I don't want to do that exercise just because I don't like it.
Yeah.
And you thinking it's difficult is the reason to not like it probably means you should lean into that a little bit more, you know, unless there's pain associated, right? There's
Exactly.
different reasons to avoid exercises.
Well, and I always tell people that, like I said, like it's personal training for a reason. So I actually do tell people, like, if you don't like an exercise, now again, like I said, it's different if it's just because you suck at it. Like if you suck at it, okay, yeah, we're probably going to lean into that a little bit. But if someone doesn't like it because they just genuinely don't like the exercise, it's like, I would rather give them something they like a little bit more, because I find people are going to push harder on an exercise that they enjoy versus one they don't. So it's like, okay, if they don't like walking lunges, but they like reverse lunges, like, well, let's do reverse lunges. It doesn't make that big of a difference in terms of what we're targeting tissue wise, but if it gets more effort, I feel like that's always going to drive better results.
Yeah, it creates more adherence and buy-in and value, you know.
Yeah.
They're
you can ask your coach to change too often, I feel like, too, where it's like, okay, calm down. Like sometimes we just need to run out an exercise for a few weeks. But yeah, it's like sometimes things just don't agree with the person. And like you said, if it's a pain issue, then obviously we're either changing the load or we're changing some sort of parameter to find something that's not causing pain.
Exactly.
Last question I had, because I didn't really have much for like quick hitters on these today, but just what do you think is the most overrated exercise for running?
This is going to be like
all the exercises you hate here. That's fine.
Yeah. But overrated, that's different. Takes, I'm going to need 30 seconds, Alec.
Okay. Go for it.
Honestly, I'm going to say core.
Okay. Yeah.
And let me back that up with
before you get every core class hating on you for that.
Yeah. You know, core is important. I think it's overrated because I think based on, I think Ryan's experience and my experience, it seems to be a very popular muscle group in lieu of neglecting other muscle groups that would benefit that individual more.
Yep.
So
it's funny. It's I feel like we just keep tying back to every conversation I had in class today, but similar. I just had a girl saying how she like, and she's been with me now for probably 6-8 months, and she was noticing how like she just feels like her abs are more defined, and it's not even anything nutrition. And she says she actually does less ab work now than she's ever done, but it's like we're getting stronger on back squats, we're getting stronger on deadlifts, we're getting stronger on stuff that carries into everything. And then we're still doing some direct ab work on the side, but it's like we're using it as more like, you know, the garnish on top of the dish. We're not just making a whole dish out of it.
Exactly.
And that's my last cooking analogy for today. But if people want to get a hold of you, where can they find you at?
They can find me on Instagram. It's coach.pauly_inc.
Not 406 Thor anymore.
No, that one's gone.
A little more professional now.
Yeah. Although now people call me, I'm wearing a Thor t-shirt, so that's kind of ironic, but I think a client got it for me actually. And, or you can go to the bar 406. That's if you find me, my personal page, I usually just put all my information on that page for coaching, and I'll sometimes collaborate with my business page, but that would be the best way. Or if you already follow Ryan, look at his stories. I tag him occasionally and, or search for me and his 10 friends that he has on there.
Thanks, Pauly, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Ryan. It's a pleasure.
All right. Thanks. All right, guys. Thanks for checking in. We'll see you next episode.